It is a shocking Greenland tradition to leave elderly people on ice floes. That formerly in the frigid expanses of Greenland, the elderly were plucked from their homes and put on drifting ice floes to die alone, is a story that sounds like it was stolen from a fable, a terrifying tale that was whispered in the dark. Both literally and figuratively, the concept caused a shiver to run down one's bone structure. However, is this only a myth, or did Greenlandic Inuit societies engage in what is being described here? A deeply complicated tradition that has been fashioned by survival, sacrifice, and shifting ideals is revealed by the truth, which sits midway between historical nuance and cultural misinterpretation. A world of survival in the Arctic. One must first have an understanding of the setting in which this terrifying tradition is said to have originated to comprehend its beginnings. The world's largest island, Greenland, is composed of more ice than the Earth itself. The Inuit people, who are indigenous to the Arctic and have lived in these harsh, frozen regions for ages, had to constantly negotiate with the severe conditions to survive. For a significant portion of the year, temperatures were below freezing, and there was frequently a scarcity of resources. To ensure the group's continued existence, the primary source of food was hunting, and every competent body was required to participate. The world in which we live did not permit any form of extravagance or sentimentality. At every stage of the decision-making process, including those concerning life and death, the collective survival was the primary consideration. The practice of abandoning elderly people is something that needs to be investigated within this framework. It should not be viewed as an act of cruelty, but rather as an extreme action that is the result of despair and cultural logic. There is a legend, and there are facts. It is said that when resources were dangerously low, and an elder could no longer contribute to the survival of the community due to illness, age, or disability, they might volunteer to end their life or be asked to do so to preserve resources for the younger generation. This is according to oral traditions and secondhand reports from early European explorers and anthropologists. According to one version of this tale, elderly people were abandoned on ice floes, which are sheets of floating ice that are unattached from the land, and they would eventually perish as they drifted into the icy waters of the ocean. When Peter Freuchen, an anthropologist and Arctic researcher, lived among Greenlandic Inuit communities in the early 20th century, he observed that the people he lived with had a profound reverence for their elders. He observed that the tales of abandonment were more symbolic than they were genuine. They reflected a culture's struggle with tough decisions rather than a policy or custom that was frequently carried out. Over their dying days, many Inuit elders were surrounded by their families, who loved and cared for them until the very end. How indigenous cultures have been historically documented is a significant contributor to the answer. These cultures have frequently been described through the lens of colonizers, missionaries, or early anthropologists who did not have a complete understanding of the belief systems or environmental factors that form such activities. As a means of justifying their cultural superiority, these foreigners frequently regarded native rituals through a moralistic or sensationalist lens, portraying them as barbarous or brutal. In conclusion, the story of the Greenlandic elders who were abandoned on the ice and allowed to drift away is not merely a historical curiosity. Rather, it is a mirror. It is a reflection of how cultures, when they are pushed to their limits, face the most profound ethical dilemmas that are associated with human existence. These concerns include love, sacrifice, survival, and the meaning of a good death. The narrative exposes a great deal about the brutal beauty of life in the Arctic, and perhaps more about our contemporary unease with aging and death. This is true regardless of whether or not the event occurred as frequently as it is described. The fact that, after all of our advancements, we are still learning how to respect those who came before us is perhaps the most surprising aspect of the practice. It is not the fact that it may have occurred that is the most astounding. If you found this video helpful, don't forget to like the video, subscribe for more insightful content, and let us know in the comments.